Thanks, everyone. I think there were some fantastic answers. I think one of the big barriers to inclusion is this idea that it's a bit of a zero-sum game. So there are only 200 ASX CEO roles, and if we give more of them to people from minorities, there are less of those for people who've worked really hard and earned those opportunities. So how do we challenge this thinking that it is a zero-sum game, that for some people to advance or to have more opportunity, it means that others have to have less opportunity, and see inclusion as a way of growing the economy, growing opportunity? Maybe we could have more ASX companies or more of those kind of opportunities, or we could place more value on different types of roles and achievements.
Yeah,
so interested in your views on that.
That's a great question. I'm trying to remember this quote. They say you can't do equality equally. And that makes sense, right? Yeah. I didn't make it up. So you're right. And the thing is, I think it goes back to privilege as well. I'm very big on societal privilege. I talk about it a lot. But when you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. That's another quote. I don't know who wrote it. It's not me. But it's great because that's what it is. When we're trying to reach equality, to those who feel like they're going to now miss out, it's hard. And we had the same debate when we talked about gender equality. We're still having that debate around gender parity. And unfortunately, the dominant group who are not necessarily going to benefit from having gender equality, because it means less men and more women, the arguments that keep getting mounted is around merit. But of course there's an assumption inherent in that the current status quo is based on merit. And of course, if it was, it's not, but if it was, that would assume that women don't have merit. That would assume that people of culturally diverse backgrounds don't have merit. And I can tell you that's not the case. So, I think to sum up, it's hard to try and get everyone on board, but I think to be effective, you can't be inclusionary by being exclusionary. So it's a really fine line, and hopefully we'll get there.
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? Any other thoughts on zero-sum game here for?
I might share a perspective from the sporting landscape. It's often played out around the pay gap between sportsmen and sportswomen, and in this country, where last year we saw one of the most successful years for Australian women in sport. And the argument has often been, well, when the revenues come, then we'll be able to sustain or pay the women more. In the context of an Olympic Games where there is no pay on the table, you look at the number of medalists, that is the women who win medals over the men, and it's significantly more. It's an average about 66% of our medalists come from women, and it's higher in the Winter Games. So people often say, well, it's the sponsors and the media rights that drive the revenue sources, and sometimes it's a matter of just calling bullshit on when things are just not as they need to be. As they're presented. If you look at the net sum game, by seeing the AFL create the Women's League this year, that's about growing the pie. That's about new and different sponsors want to sponsor a women's league that will not take away the funding from the men's league and the salaries that those men are earning. Now, yes, it's going to take time, of course, to grow that, but that's an example where they grew the pot by growing the sport in a gender-inclusive way.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Fiona. Any other thoughts? Steve?
Look, when you say zero-sum game, I'm trying to get my head around what you mean. To me, it's bull, right? The idea that all these poor boys are going to miss out because more girls are getting directorships, I think you just got to push ahead, and that's a pathetic excuse. Pathetic. There are plenty of good boards out there with gender balance. I was on the Medibank board. We had 5 women, 2 guys. That was interesting because that was like hanging around with my daughters and other females. It was quite a female-oriented culture. Then I was on a board at David Jones with 3 and 3. There was no gender around the table. It just sort of didn't play. And then I've been on boards where there are more guys, but I think the talent pool is rich with female candidates now, and some guys are going to have to miss out. I mean, I'm one of them. I mean, I often get called by someone who'll say, hey, are you interested in this board? And I have a look and I say, how many women have you got? And there's only 1 woman on a board of 6, and they're talking to me. I say, why are you talking to me? Like, you should have a woman on the board. So And now I think the shift is happening. I really do. I'm quite optimistic. I think a lot of we're seeing the world as it was still, and things are going to change quickly, and it's moving. I think it is moving more positively, but it is, frankly, bad luck, because guys who were not as good as women that are out there got those board positions, so now some guys are going to miss out.
Yeah, I am also very optimistic. I work for the largest corporate in Australia. Our chairperson is a woman. The CEO's direct reports, 50% female, 50% male. I think we are making progress. It's going to take time. When I look at the leadership team of the organisation I work for, it's actually starting to come up, but it's going to take some time. I think if we continue on this, if we continue to promote and sponsor women in the workforce, we will get there. But we're making some progress, not quick enough, but I'm actually confident that we'll make further progress in the years to come.
Yeah. It's a pretty interesting one, though, because how many people in the room here watched Q&A last night? Yep. And so last night, Q&A had a panel of all women in recognition of International Women's Day. And I know some of you were on Twitter like I was. I was tweeting with some. The number of men that were still on Twitter saying things like, why is it all women? And Dopey Dora's saying things like, when will we have all men? To which people go back, every day is all men. Like, what is wrong with you? And I think, of course, the whole, why do you have to have an International Women's Day? Like, all of this stuff. We do need more men to share the realities of those stories with the less informed men out there, with the privileged men out there. And it's not carrot stick stuff here, which is the great thing about inclusionary leadership. We're not drilling around unconscious bias, but that sits in under. If we talk in a positive context of inclusive leadership and what that looks like, we have a framework that is more carrot than stick to bring these conversations to life. But we do need to call it out. And Kylie, absolutely, we see it every day, every week. There is a man who will feel that he is being disadvantaged by the concept of equality.
I wanted to just share a quick story in this regard. I presented on workplace diversity, and the general manager in the room, who had a number of male reports that reported to her, asked me this question, and I knew exactly what she was getting at. And she basically said, we speak about gender equality and gender parity, but some of my male direct reports have raised the issue of merit. And I had to answer this question knowing, because I just knew this person, that the people she was talking about were actually in the room, the men that she was talking about. So it was very tricky, and I thought, do I want to get out of here alive or not? But this is the way I answered it. And I basically said, look, merit, if you flip merit, men also want to make sure that they got their jobs on merit, right? Like entirely on merit, not on preferential treatment, not on the basis that unconscious bias operates in such a way that the decision maker makes a decision in the first 10 seconds, and that our brains are wired to think that men make better leaders, because inherently that's what society's taught us over the years. And so the idea is unconscious bias can actually work in such a way that means that men can actually have preferential treatment. And arguably, if you take that argument, extend it further, that could mean that men got some jobs not on merit, right? And so that's how you answer it, and that's how you flip it. That you, as a man, you want to make sure you got your job on merit, and as a woman, we want to make sure we get our jobs on merit. And unconscious bias works both as preferential treatment and in treatment that could be not as favourable. So
lots of nods for that. That's a really good reframe, isn't it? So let's flip that conversation. Yeah.